Wow. That is some serious anticipation for this conversation. We better make it good.
Wow, will you come and watch our series? Please.
Let's give them a reason for it.
I think we have to pay them, Peter.
Oh, that's okay.
I mean, there are so many different kinds of ways to watch movies, and what you guys are doing here is creating an incentive to go watch movies in the movie theater, but you've been doing it for a little bit of time, so maybe we should start out by talking a little bit about how it came together. Mark, do you want to kind of give us sort of the general history in that sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, there are many ways to watch movies, and the home entertainment experience is far better than it ever was. It happens to be great for our industry because the smaller films are accessible. But we really feel that the theatrical experience is important. There's nothing like sitting in the dark with your eyes dilated as a willing participant, wanting to be moved. And it's real social networking, it's real life social experience. People like to talk about the movies that they've just seen. So this was really intended to keep the theater-going experience vital. And the studios do a lot of different things in terms of Skyping in talent, bringing talent live to cities the night the film opens. So this is similar, but it's done throughout the country with 63 theaters. So it's very similar to that strategy, but gives access to people around the country who wouldn't ordinarily have it.
Allison, given your own background at various different media outlets covering the film world, what was exciting to you about getting involved in a series like this?
Well, I think what Mark said is getting people back into the cinemas, which is how I grew up seeing movies. And as much as I love, like the rest of us, to sort of stay at home in my pajamas and watch a film, once I'm out and I'm seeing something on the big screen, there's nothing like it. And I still kind of get, it sounds corny, but I still get a little excited, when the movie's about to begin. I just saw The Martian, IMAX, 3D. You got to go out and see films like that. So this is a great way of just giving that extra bonus to get people to pay to go to a movie. You give them extra content.
Peter, you feel similarly?
Well, a little bit. My problem is going to the movies all the time and trying basically not to just go to critic screenings, but to go out with an audience, not just when we do our series. And what saddens me about it is that there are a lot of people, they watch the movie, I see them get up, they throw their popcorn boxes out, and somebody will say, "What did you think?" And the other person will say, "Oh, it's all right." And it's over. There's no talking about it. They've just spent 2 hours of their day watching this movie, and all it is, I liked it, it sucked, it's something else. And that saddens me. Part of the job that we all do is not to teach in the sense of tell you, this movie's good, this movie's bad, but to actually just say, think about it, and let's argue about it. And this series gives the audience that chance. And now that it's extended to so many cities, you start to feel that energy, that kind of heat that you don't feel if you just go to the movies. It's not there anymore, and I think it's not there in a lot of places. I mean, I know we all binge watch TV, and we go and talk about it a little bit, but not that much. And I think keeping a conversation going is what I fear is going out of movies. And this is the best way I've figured out so far to keep it going.
Also, I think that I've seen many a film where I've thought, didn't love it, didn't speak to me. And then you sit and you hear a conversation with the director, and the director talks about, maybe the inspiration for the film, or, the experience of shooting the film, and you see everything in a different light. And as a critic, I'm not sure whether that should influence your opinion of a film, but it certainly adds to the experience. I understand what the director was trying to do, and it can make you look at a film in a whole different light, and that's important.
I want to get into some examples, but before we get to that, we should also address the bigger equation here, which is that you're not just showing movies. there's another element to this series and also to the way that theaters are being used now around the country to show events that people might not otherwise have access to. Mark, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it started with the inception of the Metropolitan Opera, and Peter Gelb and the folks over there began broadcasting it live on Saturday afternoons to theaters around the country. So that was the first of its kind of real alternative content in theaters. I mean, we know that there were boxing matches and things and closed circuit years ago, but this was really an ongoing series. The National Theater is now captured live and sent into theaters. So the art house theater, the independent cinema, is really a hub for all sorts of things and not just movies. And we've engaged mostly independent art house cinemas around the country who's been the destination for film festivals and know how to get an audience there and are passionate about what they do. So what we do is, or what Allison does, is she puts together a 30-minute pre-show. So that will get into far greater depth than Peter can in the 15, 20 minutes he interviews the talent afterwards. So she gives full insight, background, and we try to make it a very compelling show with behind-the-scenes stills and little vignettes and featurettes. So that's what people will see, let's say, in Cleveland when they walk in at 6:30 for a 7 o'clock. Peter introduces the film. They see the film in its entirety. And these are big films, small films, things like Gone Girl, American Hustle. We'll show smaller works of passion like James Franco, Child of God, which was a big risk, Digging for Fire, a lot of the films and the talent that you featured here. And then Peter does an interview for about 10, 12 minutes with the talent on stage, live here in New York. And then we have questions coming in from around the country, so that the theaters there have some connection and there's some relevance for them as opposed to just watching a show on the screen, which is more of a compelling show and not just a Skype or talking heads. It's a full 5-camera HD production, pretty big production.
Let's talk a little bit more about the pre-show in depth, Allison. What do you sort of look to in terms of how you want to structure the elements that you're putting out there to prepare an audience to watch a movie?
Well, Mark really produces the show. I host the show. I mean, we work together on it, I suppose, but Mark always tries to find a location. You know, the pre-show is not live. It's something that is shot beforehand, edited, and then is shown on the big screen before the movie. So Mark usually picks a location that, I don't know, thematically fits or has some link to the film, perhaps. And then
under the Brooklyn Bridge, under the GW Bridge, places where iconic things in New York, which people around the country aren't, which may be familiar with, but will catch a different angle. Like, it's very seldom that someone gets to go underneath the GW Bridge, you know?
He likes to put me in really uncomfortable situations, like, 100-degree day with 100% humidity, and then have me stand in front of a camera for about 3 hours.
Sounds like the movie business.
Yeah, I'm like a movie star for a day.
But she always looks great.
No, we did a beautiful one from the Brooklyn Promenade. So, we shoot on location, try and make it look nice, give some value there. And then the pre-show is really to just tell people the background of the film and perhaps a little bit about how the film came to be, whether it was, Gone Girl from a book or, maybe background about the writer. Peter gets into some stuff afterwards, but I'll sort of cover things he can't do, which is talk about the actors in the film and, all you may know this actor because they were in this, and that. So I'm like a little IMDb visual before the film.
Trivia embodied by a person.
Yes.
That's an interesting concept. Peter, there's something kind of meta about doing a Q&A, about your Q&A practices.
It's very meta. It is, definitely.
But it is a very particular art form, especially when you're talking to filmmakers. We know that they're probably doing a lot of these things in some cases. What is sort of your, how-to sort of method to getting people to talk about their work in a way that doesn't sound like the same canned answers they're giving to everything?
Well, I have a how-to and a how-not to. I've learned by doing this because very differently from even what we're doing here or me doing a show on ABC where I'm in a studio, everybody in the audience that's in New York and everybody in all those 60, whatever number there is of cities, has just watched the movie. It's really different. An audience has an energy. There's like a, and you could tell if they didn't like it. A lot of James Franco's fans that came there were maybe 17, and they're watching a show about necrophilia, you know. And
that was Child of God.
You're basically sitting there saying, well, let's discuss this. What's it going to be like? What was it like for you, James? And he, because we're in a live situation with an audience, is saying, that woman in the front row is my stalker. How did she get in here? You know? So he's conscious of her being that close to him on the stage. The how not to do it is sometimes you try to break through that world that they're in because they've done a junket all day. And so me, very cleverly, and to my great horror, in introducing Russell Crowe for The Water Diviner, I said, Russell, you are the director and the star of the movie. Which one was the biggest asshole? And I saw actual smoke coming out of his ears. It was, I got that look, and then he said, critics are assholes. And I said, well, now that we've got that over with, we could get to this movie. And it worked out in the end, but when you first start doing this, what you want to do is make them alive again. The last thing that you want to hear is everything you just heard them do that morning on Michael and Kelly, or whatever show they did.
But I think the difference is that when these stars go on Michael and Kelly or the Today Show, or when they do these press junkets, they're selling the film. It's publicity. No one's seen the film. You know, it's usually the day it opens or the week it opens. So they're really talking about the film as a pitch. Whereas when Peter sits down to talk to them, as he says, everyone's just seen the film. He doesn't need to sell the film anymore. You can talk to them about different kind of stuff.
And you don't have to worry about spoilers.
Right, you can talk about everything.
How liberating.
It is. It's like, whoa, we all saw, you know, who was the real killer in Gone Girl. We know it now, those that didn't read the book. And it's liberating, but I also think the guest takes the energy from that audience. I could feel it. Once they start to hear some of those questions and they feel that even if some of them don't like it or they're confused by it, there is that sense of they engaged with it. I'm watching people engage with what I spent the last 2 years making.
And some of these folks like Rob Reiner, they love a live audience. John Favreau.
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino.
Al Pacino was so great.
So compelling in terms of storytelling.
He was so natural, told great stories. I felt like you weren't seeing someone perform as much as just be themselves.
So we try to make these special evenings and organic evenings. And Peter said before, with films of this size, like Danny Collins, like Chef, it's all about nurturing. And in order for these films to find an audience, now filmmakers and movie stars are talking to 6,000 to 10,000 people all at once that have seen the movie, as opposed to a live screening in New York or LA where there's a couple hundred people. So it's their time to shine and show their heart and soul about what they've put into the film. It's not necessarily about selling it, like they've said. It's about nurturing it, and these theaters want to nurture films because these are the films that end up winning awards at the end of the year that no one's heard of, like Freeheld and Spotlight and Carol and things like that, where you tell the public Carol is one of the best. What? They never heard of it. And they probably won't until the awards get announced, and if it's there, you know.
Well, that's a good segue into talking about some of the upcoming screenings that you have. I mean, you're talking about a movie like Carol or Spotlight. These are films that have premiered at film festivals but haven't opened in theaters yet. There might be some expectations for them, but at the same time, they're movies that surprise people. So what are you guys excited to see how your audience react to?
Well, our next one is called Meadowland, and it stars Olivia Wilde, along with Luke Wilson and a great cast, Giovanna Ribisi and Kevin Corrigan, and a bevy of others, John Leguizamo. And it's directed by Reed Morano, who's a local favorite around here. She's a female director of photography, and she was the director. She directed it. It was her first film. She was the cinematographer, and she also operated. This film, obviously, because it's done by a DP, is very visual, and there's a lot of punctuation, and that's the style. So I'm a big fan of this film because it's about a tragedy, and the characters react in very unusual ways. There's no expectations about it, and it's not very defined. It's very obtuse. So it's really up to the audience to determine really how they're feeling. And I don't even know if the characters in the film knew how they were feeling. So this is something I'm looking forward to seeing, how an audience adapts to a rough, a tough film, but super well done.
Any others that you're excited about?
Well, I'm excited for them to see Carol, especially a movie called Spotlight, which is about journalism, although it's in the ancient days of 2002. My God, that's when the Boston Globe did this expose of sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. Thomas McCarthy, who is the director, is somebody who has come through that indie movement and has made a movie about what really happened, cast it with Michael Keaton, Mark Ruffalo, Liev Schreiber, Rachel McAdams. No fake Hollywood love story, nothing in it. And what I love, which goes back to what excites me about it, when I talked about going to a real theater and seeing those people come out and have nothing to say about what they just did, once they have a conversation, once they listen to the filmmaker or the actor, as they're leaving, they're all talking. They're all saying, oh, I didn't see that. When I first saw it, I didn't get it. Now I kind of get it, and they're arguing about it. So any movie that can do that is okay in my book.
And one of the things that's actually really interesting about all of this and worth discussing before we go to audience questions is the way in which it sounds like you're almost smuggling certain discoveries into the series. The audience is going to come because James Franco is there. Maybe they don't know that Child of God is based on a Cormac McCarthy novel, and then they'll go read it, or they'll see Carol and discover a great filmmaker like Todd Haynes. So tell us a little bit about the process of discovery and why you think that's a valuable part of the movie-going experience.
There are some big films that we've shown, as we've mentioned, but our passion is for the little ones, the little engines that could. And we've done a lot of films like Digging for Fire and Bluebird with John Slattery. We're looking to do Shelter, Jennifer Connelly's movie with Paul Bettany. These are teeny tiny movies from small distributors who don't have a chance to get the word out there because of budgetary restrictions. So this allows them to have a big premiere, and also for their AMPAS, their guild screenings and their press screenings throughout the country. Studios have had a strategy over the years to have regional word-of-mouth screenings, which are free, and for people to attend to get the word out. There's really no skin in the game. So that's an issue. And the other thing is there's never talent at those things. So this allows talent and the public to have access to those teeny tiny little movies. And we always tell people, you might not like the film, but we hope that you respect the choice. So these are not safe films. Peter and Allison and I will take risks. It might not be good business, but we don't care. We don't want to sacrifice that for really going for it. We love doing this. It's a real passion. No one's getting rich. So we're just the guys to do that.
Well, another way to spin it is maybe it's good business to take risks because people are going to start to trust those risks that you're taking.
Amen to that, brother. That would be good.
So let's take some questions from the audience. There's a microphone going around, so we'll start over there.
Hi, how are you? Could you talk about the process in which you guys curate the films for your series?
Yeah, we look at the upcoming slate. By the time you guys know about movies, they've been through an entire process. We know what's out there. We know which scripts have been circulating all over the place. We know what goes into production. We know what ends up at festivals, at Sundance, at Toronto, at Cannes, at Venice. So it's been through this entire industry process even before it's taken to market. So people will ask us about movies, and we don't necessarily remember what's out now, like what's coming out this week. We don't know, Peter may because he's in that process. But there are certain distributors and studios who have a certain sensibility for a type of film and are willing to take risks that we like to work with. Gone Girl had it was David Fincher. It had an indie sensibility. American Hustle was David O. Russell. Even though it turned out to be a huge film with an unbelievable cast, it had an independent sensibility. So, and Russell Crowe's movie, Water Diviner, which was super well done, he too took a risk. It was a Gallipoli story, which hadn't been told in a long time about the Ottoman Empire. Not a lot of people want to see that, but you know, very exciting to know that Australians sacrificed their life to go fight them in the Turkish mountains, and they had no chance. They were slaughtered. So, yeah, we have our eye on certain types of things.
Hi, yes. We have a question from an online viewer. David would like to know, when award seasons come around, do you usually agree with the Academy nominations and winners?
Let's get
Peter?
feisty.
You want that? Yeah.
I don't know if I can.
Well, the cream
generalize.
usually rises to the top. They're usually all there. Whatever wins.
Well, there's
Yeah,
eight
but
or
it's
nine.
sad.
There's 8 or 9 nominees now for
But
Best
aren't they
Picture.
going back? Isn't there a rumor
We can
that
have
they're
as
going
many
back
as
to-
10, right?
I
But it's a
thought this-
question of what kind of a year and how the campaigns shake down.
I thought they didn't like that thing, the fact that now there could be 8, 9, 10. I thought they were going to go back to having only 5. I always thought that was asinine because you've got 10 Best Picture nominees and then only 5 Best Director. And then everyone makes a big deal. Oh my gosh, it got a Best Picture nod, but not a director. And you're like, yes, there's 10 here and 5 here. 5 people are going to be left out. Like, it's not that shocking. Do I agree with the? I don't know. Do you? Sometimes
Well, no,
I do.
because
Sometimes
that's
I
the
don't.
fun of movies. I think it's great to pick on this all the time. Eric and I are both members of the New York Film Critics Circle, and so in that discussion, you would think it was on this higher plane, but in point of fact, the arguments are just as nasty. The sense of a lot of people would look at a movie like The Social Network as a Hollywood sellout movie. There's always arguments, and I'm saying the arguing is great. So no, I never agree with the Academy. They're all assholes.
And for me, I like that they've been spreading it around. So, and we do have new inductees that are a lot of outsiders this year, a lot of PR people, a lot of new blood brought into the guild members. But I like that they've spread it around. I like that they'll give acknowledgement to Best Screenplay and then another film for Best Supporting. So rarely do we see things sweep in those top awards, maybe the craft awards and everything else, and there will be one overall winner. But I like that they at least give nods and
But that's
awards.
like saying, come to my kid's party and everybody gets a prize. I just don't think that's what the movie industry, if that's what you want to call it, should really be about. If some movie is really head and shoulders above the other ones that we've seen this year, then why not? I mean, I'm not worried about the gift baskets for everybody. I think go fight for the one that really hit you. You know what happens when you see a movie that really affects you in some way. You get up, you leave, you walk around the block. At least I do that. I just go, what was that? Whoa, how could that possibly be? Now, do I see 8 or 9 movies a year that have that effect on me? No, sad to say, it doesn't really happen. But we're going after the filmmaker, I think, who has that energy, that sense to say, is this my chance to make this a calling card for Hollywood, or is this my chance to say something that's been buried inside of me for a long time? That's the movies I get
Whiplash,
excited
Damien Chazelle, Whiplash,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Alejandro Inarritu, Birdman. I mean, to me, those were my 2 favorites of
I
the year.
hated Birdman. See, that's just it. And the thing is the idea, the very notion of declaring this the best film is ridiculous.
But it was great when you said you hated Birdman and he liked it.
He liked
because
it.
the next great question should be, why did you hate it and why did you like it? In other words, people seem to be worried about offending the other person.
I'm not
what
worried
their
about
opinion
offending
is.
Mark.
No, we're
Well,
passionate.
why did you hate it?
I thought the cinematography, while admirable, got in the way of the storytelling. I still don't really know what it was about. I think I've seen it twice. I thought the ending was awful.
An egomaniac with an inferiority complex.
A few supporters.
My
in the crowd.
my point is that people are always, you can't judge art in the way that you can say this person won the 100-meter sprint. You can't do that. Some people like Picasso, some people like Gainsborough. I mean, it's different styles. How can you say Birdman is better than The Theory of Everything?
Well, another way of putting it is that consensus is boring, and we're all used to looking at, rotten or fresh, thumbs up, thumbs down. Everything is being reduced to these variables that aren't actually the way that our minds work or our tastes evolve. And award season, to go back to the original question, creates a context for having those discussions. But you guys and people who do the work that we do, we're invested in these conversations year round, and that's what makes the work interesting. And hopefully that's what make these screening series interesting as well, is that people are going to come out and have conversations about it. Even if they don't hate it, maybe they got something out of being there. So
we like to move people, just not out of the theater.
Right. Stay in your seats for 2 hours or so, and then.
So you'd like to explain the end of Birdman to everybody here right today?
It's an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. That's
right, but does he fly? That's the real question.
Film.
Is he actually flying?
I hate to
I don't
give this
think
away, but it's
Alejandro
old. It's
wouldn't
an
tell
old
you.
movie. Yeah, he did say that. He said Michael Keaton's character is dead when he shoots himself. He has a few minutes left of being alive in his mind to imagine himself in this hospital where everything he wanted is going to come true. He's going to have a rave in the New York Times. His daughter's there, his ex-wife is there, and his agent, Zach Galifianakis, is there. The only people that actually he loves. And when Emma Stone comes out, she looks up when she thinks, not that he killed himself, but that he looks up, and it's the only time Iñárritu, as a director, allows her to smile. If you look at the movie again, never. There's no smile ever. So to him,
do you know
that's
that?
what that is.
Alejandro told you this,
I did a whole spoiler.
Yeah, talk about spoilers, really.
It was great.
But
It
maybe
was
this makes it worth
liberating.
a second viewing, too.
Yeah.
So let's take some more questions.
We have time for one more question.
Hi, I was curious, if you were stuck in an island and you only had one movie that came out in the last 5 years.
5 years?
In the last 5 years, which one would it be for each of you?
So Casablanca doesn't count.
Great
huh?
finale.
Casablanca.
No. If you saw it in the last 5 years, I guess that would be
I can't remember what I saw yesterday. In the last 5 years?
You're going to think I'm super crazy, but I really love the movie Frank.
From Lenny Abramson, who has a new movie called Room coming out this fall, so it's timely to choose that one as well. That's a good one.
Timely?
I seriously can't. I'd need to look at a list of the films I've seen in the last. That's pathetic. Films
10
I've
is
seen in the
easier.
last
There Will
5
Be Blood,
years.
American Splendor, those are...
Well, I'm not sure There Will Be Bloods in the last 5 years.
10 years, I know it's 10.
I would choose it too. It's the movie, I think The Master is the last 5 years. So I would choose that because, again, it's Paul Thomas Anderson. People that see it who come and talk to me about it say, I hated that damn thing. What were they trying to do? And yet, when I see a filmmaker like Paul Thomas Anderson working that way with an actor, God bless him, Philip Seymour Hoffman, so good, and it being about power, and it being about spiritual power, the way that you can use the sense of an other or God in some way to manipulate everybody. I don't know anything more timely than that, even though it's not set now. So each time I watch it, I find something else in it.
And did they love each other? I don't know.
It doesn't, I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter that basically Michael Keaton was dead long before if it got you, if something about who he was really got to you. And that movie got to me.
In The Master, Philip Seymour Hoffman and
Joaquin
Phoenix, yeah.
Oh, seriously, I'm going to have to get back
We
to
bought
it.
you some time, you know.
You get back to us?
Well, nothing really jumps out.
Well, I would go with Boyhood. It was a movie that...
Oh,
you
yeah.
know,
Okay, maybe
there you
that
go.
one.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
we found some
I just
consensus.
needed a nudge.
Yeah, so we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Great movie. It's older than 5 years and yet came out last year and says so much about life that we can't fit into this conversation
What
right
he
now.
said.
We don't even have to debate the ending because it's pretty clear
there
cut.
it is.
Well, thanks for being here and thanks for sticking around.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.